Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Folks, we got a lot to get to today. Let's talk about the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We're asking the question as they kick off these confirmation hearings, how much weight does representation matter? We'll get into that conversation. Also, the National League of Cities had their convention last weekend. We'll be checking in with the mayor of Tacoma, Washington, to give us an update about what these elected officials are discussing, and more importantly, how they plan to make better policy for Americans. Later on, we'll talk about the Crown Act. We have a very special guest to talk about her work as she is a filmmaker to change the culture and the perception of beautiful black hair. And then we'll talk about what is happening with trends, posts, and doing the most. So stay with us. We got a lot to get to. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Another exciting week we're kicking off here at the culture on the Black Star Network. So excited to be having so many great conversations and discussions with you. Okay, so here it is today. Today is the big day because today is day one of the confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, this is, of course, President Biden's Supreme Court nominee. And, you know, as he promised, he said that he was going to nominate a black woman to the highest court in the land. But as we have these confirmations, these hearings over these next couple of days, folks, just know there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be presented to us as the American people about what is going on with her record, her decisions. I mean, she has written over 500 opinions on various cases. Only out of 550 opinions, she has only had about 11 or 12 that have actually been reversed. So her reversal rate is what they say is less than 5%, down to 2%. Even both Republicans and Democrats say that she has an impressive resume. But there is still the possibility that she may not get confirmed, even though the sentiment is that she is going to be able to pass this confirmation hearing. Now, one of the big, I would say, opponents to her is Mr. Josh Hawley. If you don't know who Mr. Hawley is, Mr. Hawley plays, I mean, he is a Republican. He has been pivotal in pushing the whole. He's a Trump Republican, and he has been pushing the lie about the election fraud. He has been a very vocal opponent of anything that is coming down as Democrat. And one of his latest attacks was actually on Ketanji Brown Jackson, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. I mean, we talked about Tucker Carlson and his calling out Judge Jackson for her LSAT scores, which was stupid. But now Mr. Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, he questioned her about and made some wild allegations and accusations saying that she has had a terrible record, especially in defending those who have violated children. Now, I want to share with you just a little bit about what Mr. Hawley said, because I think it's relevant. And then we'll bring in our culture crew member, B Fly, to be a part of this conversation. But he said, quote, "I've been researching the record of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, reading her opinions, articles, interviews, and speeches. And he said, I've noticed an alarming pattern when it comes to Judge Jackson's treatment of sex offenders, especially those preying on children. Judge Jackson has a pattern of letting child porn offenders off the hook for their appalling crimes, both as a judge and as a policymaker. Yeah. He's saying that pretty much Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is for sex offenders and child violators, which is absolutely false, folks. Absolutely false. So, these are the type of attacks that we're going to be seeing and hearing if you're not keeping up with the hearing. These are the type of things that are going to be said about Ketanji Brown Jackson. On the other side of the conversation is the fact that there have been a number of Black women leaders, Black elected officials who are all in for Judge Jackson to get confirmed. And they have made it known. They have been very, very vocal about this whole situation. And so it's going to be interesting to see what a part of her record, outside of the false claim made by Senator Josh Hawley, but what other things that her record could possibly lead to. I want to bring in our culture crew member, B Fly, to be a part of this conversation, because here's the thing about it. I don't want to get into, we can certainly go back and forth and discuss the record of Judge Jackson and all of those things. But I want to talk about a cultural element that I think is important for us to keep in mind, because this is another historic moment. If Judge Jackson gets confirmed, this is the first Black woman to sit on the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court of the United States. Huge, huge moment. And a lot of people will say that representation matters. And I'm asking, how much weight does representation have? Why does it matter? Is it possible that, yes, representation is important, but it still not matter? Let me bring in culture crew member B Fly in this as part of this conversation, because we're at this point, B, and it's always good to see you. We're at this point. First and foremost, B, you look very radiant today, just very like sunshine.
Thank you. I am soaking up spring. I am ready. I'm ready for the new Crown Act.
I hear you.
I'm ready to push these glass ceilings. Like,
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Black glass is real. We
got
to push it up. Black glass. Black glass
Absolutely.
is lower than the other glasses. And so we got to push this up, and that's what Ketanji Brown Jackson represents to us. Where's
Absolutely.
So, Farajii, I was on CP time today. We didn't do a mic check. Like, how am I?
You're good. You're all good.
Right.
You're all good. So I want to, and this is something that I know that you have a lot of thoughts on, which is this idea of representation, right? Like, and I've seen a lot of people talk about the symbolism of having a Black woman on the highest court of the land. I've seen people having conversations saying that, look, representation matters. And I don't know if we can compare these two moments of what we saw with President Obama being in the White House and Sister Ketanji Brown Jackson being in the possibly being on the Supreme Court. But we do put a lot of weight on representation. And I'm asking the question, is that something that we should continue to do? Does this moment, as historic as it is, should we just see it as a moment of representation and not go a little bit deeper into it?
Farajii, I'm unaware of the prior Black woman Supreme Court justice. Can you name her for me?
No.
It does. Okay. See, and this is why representation matters. Like, we're not talking about just, simple inclusion within our entertainment field. We're not talking about inclusion of, let me see more Black people on TV. Let's see more people that look like me in my entertainment. No, we really have miles to go when it comes to the inclusion of our economic power, and so it's like, so this woman being able to break this Black glass ceiling, like that is real. Okay, we've had women. We have a white woman, rest in peace. But it is time for us to move this culture forward. And so if we're able to get Ketanji in, if we're able to get Judge Jackson in, then that means that we're going to literally see over the next 5-10 years a flood of more Black judges, Black men judges, Black women judges. And this is what is needed in the democracy. If we're going to believe in the democracy, if we're going to uphold the democracy and the dream of the democracy, we have to continue to push these Black glass ceilings up. We have to break them through so our daughters can actually not just aspire, but see the course, like see the way in order to get there, you know? So it's necessary, you know, this impacts our job potential, how far we're able to even aspire our careers within the American dream, you know? And so it's real. There's too many times when we're limited in thinking about our futures. There's too many times, and it's because of these situations, these gaps, these just straight voids of our presence, you know, and that has to be stopped right now.
It does have to be stopped, and I would agree with you, B. I definitely would agree with you on that. One of my concerns is the fact that if we just place our eggs in the representation basket, if we just place it in the idea of having a Black person sitting on the Supreme Court, and I'm not knocking this because I think this is a huge moment for Black people. It's a big moment for Black women, but I want us to make sure that we still hold folks accountable for everything that they have, you know, hold her accountable for what she has done at this point and what she plans to do, how she plans to vote on some of these very, very important issues. Like, how do we make sure that we don't get into a space where we're so excited about her just being there that we're not keeping her authentic and keeping her accountable to making sure that she does administer and interprets the law in a way that is going to be fair and just for all people?
You know, that's something that we're just going to have to tune in and continue to watch. There are important decisions that need to be made. And at this point, we need to offset the Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Like, we need to offset that Kavanaugh. And so this was our last Supreme Court justice, and it was riddled in controversy, riddled in rape allegations, you know. So it's it's time. Like, we need to balance this playing field. We need to balance this outlook on justice. You understand? And so and I believe that Judge Jackson is going to be able to do that. She's highly qualified. And I don't know any judge that isn't controversial. You understand? Like,
yeah,
that's when you're upholding the law. That's the law of the land. You know, you're not gonna please everybody. You know, and so I'm not gonna pretend like I'm aware of her personal moral compass, but I did not know the moral compass of the others either, you know. And I believe the only one that I've ever had any sort of affinity for or rallied for was Thurgood Marshall. Like, let's be clear, you know. And so even when it came to Clarence was silenced for so long because of the controversy that his judgeship was ushered in on as well, you know. So I don't think this is going to be anything different. This is the ultimate battle rap.
Yeah.
Farajii,
Yeah.
you know?
I like how you put that, the ultimate battle rap.
Like, when I go through it, it's like they all got charges. No one has been 100% ushered in, you know. And so and yeah, they all got bodies.
Right.
They judges. So,
right. Right. And they all have, and I think that's the other part about it, keeping them honest, as they say, right? Like, they all have some bones, some skeletons in the closet. Like, nobody, you can't get that far without making some some ill-timed decisions, or you know what I mean? Like you're not going to have a perfect record.
Right.
And I think that's one of the big things that and I want to pull up something that I saw recently where they talked about how Ketanji, she's more qualified. She's more qualified now than 4 other judges that are currently sitting on the seats right now. She's
that's
more
the
qualified.
Black experience.
You know what I mean? If we look at Kavanaugh, if we look at Amy Coney Barrett, like she brings more to the conversation, brings more to the table than those justices.
Well, that's the Black experience. All of my friends are overqualified for their positions.
Yeah.
Is that not what we?
Yeah, that's what we've all. A lot, and I'm not gonna say we've all been through it, but I will just say a lot of. Well, some of us have gone through that where we have been overqualified. We have more experiences than our white counterparts, right? And so, and so it doesn't change even at this level. Matter of fact, it gets the finish line gets pushed further at this level than what we saw than any other space. What I want to do now is I want to play just a little bit because the hearing is happening right now. We got a couple of excerpts from the start of the hearing. I want to play this first clip of today's hearing as Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is being confirmed for the Supreme Court. Check this out.
In its more than 230 years, the Supreme Court has had 115 justices. 108 have been white men. Just 2 justices have been men of color. Only 5 women have served on the court, and just 1 a woman of color. Not a single justice has been a black woman. You, Judge Jackson, can be the first. It's not easy being the first. Often you have to be the best. In some ways, the bravest. Many are not prepared to face that kind of heat, that kind of scrutiny, that ordeal in the glare of the national spotlight. But your presence here today, your willingness to brave this process will give inspiration to millions of Americans who see themselves in you. Judge Jackson, I have no doubt that history will remember you as a justice who never stopped working to defend the Constitution. But I also ask the members of this committee, as we begin this landmark confirmation process, to consider how history will judge each senator as we face our constitutional responsibility to advise and consent.
We will conduct a thorough, exhaustive examination of Judge Jackson's record and views. We won't try to turn this into a spectacle based upon alleged process fouls. Good news on that front, we're off to a very good start. Unlike the start to the Kavanaugh hearings, we didn't have repeated choreographed interruptions of Chairman Durbin during his opening statements, like Democrats interrupted me for more than an hour during my opening statement on the Kavanaugh hearings. What we will do, however, is ask tough questions about Judge Jackson's judicial philosophy. In any Supreme Court nomination, the most important thing that I look for is the nominee's view of the law, judicial philosophy, and view on the role of a judge in our constitutional system. I'll be looking to see whether Judge Jackson is committed to the Constitution as originally understood.
Folks, that was Senator Dick Durbin who gave his first remarks. And as you can hear, one of the things, B, that I think is very important is that Senator Durbin, he understood very early on the great challenge that it's going to be that's confronting Judge Jackson. He breaking down those numbers: 115 judges, 108 have been white males, none have been black women. That's a mountain to climb right there. That's a mountain to climb.
And let me tell you, and can I just say, like, she black. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
She like whole black. You feel me? Like,
right. Right.
I love it. You know, I mean, and this is extremely important. It was just it's like experiencing the Michelle Obama effect all over again. You know,
Right,
it's
right.
it's real. You know, and representation like this is important. You know, the time that we're living in is important. Like this black glass, like being shattered in front of our eyes, like that's important, you know, like and so we need to be able to take that collective energy and be another first in our world, you know, and he's right, like it is hard being the first anything, you know, but it's necessary, and there's more of us that have to be the first.
No,
Have to be the
I
first,
agree with you. I agree with you
you know.
wholeheartedly, and that's why I want to go back to that point of representation, just simply because, you know, when we're talking about the impact of having someone like this on the Supreme Court, and then looking at the impact of how it's going to affect particularly Black girls. Let me, Keenan, if you can throw that quote up in here. The Griot wrote a piece that I think that speaks to this whole thing. And this is something that they said in their article. Check this out, folks. Black girls see themselves in the court pick. For the Griot, they said for Black girls, the possibility of Jackson being the first Black woman on the Supreme Court is a moment of promise, hope, and the breaking of yet another barrier. But while the symbolism resonates deeply, many are hungry for deeper change that goes beyond just representation. And if you were to take out the fact that we're talking about girls and just put Black people, this will be the same thing that could be said about President Obama, and where we were ecstatic about the symbolism of a Black family in the White House. We were ecstatic about, you know, the possibility, the hope, the promise, and all of those things. And then certainly we were ecstatic about this level of high class Black excellence style representation that the Obamas brought into the White House. But then, you know, when you look 14 years later, some people would say, yeah, I mean, the symbolism and the representation was there, but was the change in people's condition and the change in people's lives were the policies, and all of those things were there. And I'm not trying to certainly, you know, compare the two, because they're like apples and oranges. Presidents and justices are two different roles. But to speak to that part about making sure that, yes, we are still, at the end of the day, we're looking for change. We're looking for change. Like anytime a Black person gets into a space, a seat of high power, authority, or influence, the first expectation is, what type of change will that Black person usher in? And I don't know, I don't know, B, if that's fair. I don't know if that's realistic, but that's the first thing that people think about.
You know, and I think it's a trauma response for real. You know, like it's like you can't say congratulations without working. You know, and so and I personally have that trauma response, you know, and so but we have to be able to take these wins as a culture in the same way we take losses as a culture, you know, and if we want to own collectively Black on Black death, if we want to own collectively the attitudes of all Black men and the attitudes of all Black women and the responsibility of all Black families into one conversation, then we have to be able to collectively take our wins into our culture as well. And if we get depressed in the morning when we look at the news and we see another murder, then we need to be able to be joyous on occasions like this. And the more we tally those up, then they might have a deeper impact than the negative news that we wake up to every day. But for some reason, it's easier to embrace a more depressing future for our Black lives than it is an optimistic one. And I've said it before, I said it again, we are still living amongst our kidnappers. So wins like this are yay, but there's still a psychological effect to this. You know, like we are still seeking permission to bring justice in a land that has never actually acknowledged its wrongdoing to us. And so that's real. So there is a hope. There is a hope that the more Black people, the more Black women we get into these positions of power, maybe in the next 100 years, we're able to actually see a true restorative justice for our people in this land.
Absolutely.
And that's the hope. That's the beacon when these moments happen.
Yeah.
And then when we take those lumps on a Tuesday in the news, it's because we are afraid that it's going to bring us further away from being able to actually achieve a restorative justice. And that is what we are craving for. That's what we're hoping for. That's what these wins represent in our hopeful, optimistic, cellular experiences of Black people. Like, that's what it is, you know? And so I'm ready. I believe in the restorative justice in this land, like for us. I believe it, but I also know that there's a part of it that has to be taken. And it can only be taken once the seats, once the positions at the table have literally been switched around. We have to play musical chairs in order to offset the injustice that we're experiencing. And this is what it is, you know? So,
absolutely. I love how you broke that down, man. I love how you broke that down.
Listen, from the mouths of a rapper, this is what you're going to get.
I love it. I love it. All right, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the great convention that happened last weekend with the National League of Cities, where mayors from across the country gathered together to discuss policy and figure out some solutions to some ongoing problems in some of your major cities. We're going to be checking in with Tacoma, the mayor of Tacoma, Washington, Mayor Victoria Woodard, to get her take as she serves as the vice president for the National League of Cities. So we're going to talk to her about what happened at that great convention. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the second 30 of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
No lighter in here.
Folks, welcome back. We're going to switch gears as we talk about what are some of the big things, the big challenges facing American cities. Just last weekend, the National League of Cities convened for their annual conference, and 1,300 attendees came out to discuss the American Rescue Plan Act, and as well as the American Rescue Plan Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law. 2 pieces of legislation that would offer cities resources and other funding and other ways to improve the quality of life for their cities. Now, these mayors came together to figure out how to use this money, how to make sure that the federal government is working hand in hand with cities that need it the most, and most importantly, how to address the challenges facing their constituents. We are so happy to have with us the mayor of the city of Tacoma out of Washington State, and she also serves as the national vice president for the National League of Cities, the first woman to serve as vice president of the National League of Cities, Mayor Victoria Woodard. Madam Mayor, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being with us today. We truly appreciate it.
I'm honored to join you. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. Madam Mayor, let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in your jurisdiction of Tacoma, Washington, and then we'll talk a little bit about the work of the National League of Cities. Give us some insight as to what life is like right now, because we got folks checking in from all across the country. But, Tacoma, Washington, it does not always show up on our radar. So give us some I'm not throwing no shade, Madam Mayor.
No, it's all right. We don't always end up on the radar, but
you don't end up on the radar. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because I'm in Baltimore, and sometimes we end up on the radar for the
wrong reason. I feel you. I know your mayor. I know your mayor out there, and good guys. So you all got good leadership. It's a tough time in American cities, and Tacoma is absolutely no different. And excuse me, it's not COVID, but I'm fighting a cold.
I understand. So, yes, ma'am.
But no, Tacoma's this city here out in Washington State. We are about 220,000 residents, we are the third largest city in Washington State, or the second largest city on the I-5 corridor. Seattle is about 30 miles to the north of us. And so, 220,000 people, about a little bit over 10%, between 10 and 11% African American. So we're, a fairly diverse city. I am honored to be serving as mayor now, but I actually am really proud that I'm the second African American woman to serve as mayor. Our former mayor, Marilyn Strickland, who was mayor just before me, is now a congresswoman. So what I love about my city is that not only do we believe in equity, but we believe in putting the right people in the right offices at the right times with the right skills. And I'm honored to be one of those mayors here in my city.
And you were elected in 2018. Is that correct, Madam Mayor?
Yep. And then I just got reelected this past November in 2021. Right.
And so let's talk, and congratulations on your reelection first and foremost. And let's talk a little bit about, something that you just said, which is cities across the country are facing some very, very serious challenges, right?
Absolutely.
When we look at COVID-19, and I know you probably have talked extemporaneously about the impact of COVID, right? So
yeah,
I don't think we need to get too far in the weeds for that one. But are we in a better place? And as you have convened with other mayors and elected officials from across the country through the National League of Cities, do you feel like America is in a better place to handle some of these big ticket issues?
What I will say is I believe we're going to get to a better place. And we're going to get to a better place because of how we have been set up to recover from COVID. But I wouldn't be being honest as a mayor and as mayor who spent lots of times in the last couple of weeks talking to mayors, as I do all the time. I wouldn't be a mayor if I didn't say that the challenges that are facing our cities across this country, I wouldn't be being honest if I didn't tell you that they're huge. And that, in all honesty, as I said in my State of the City just a week ago, they're unacceptable, especially in the areas of equity, public safety, in all of our cities. Having spent time, even just in a private session with mayors for a couple hours, just talking about the uptick in violence and crime in our cities across the nation, right? So recovering from COVID. I think one of the things that we saw through COVID is the fact that I wouldn't say that COVID brought to light, although there were some new things that came to light, but it really exacerbated and brought to light many of the issues that we were facing before COVID, the inequities that exist in all of our communities. So, the poor got poorer in COVID. And so times became even more difficult, but times were always difficult. So, so I certainly think that the issues that are facing us now are unlike any other time and are a part of COVID. But I want to be honest enough to say, but I think that there is no greater time than now to solve the issues facing our community. One, because I believe America's eyes are open. Everybody's having the dialogue. And you can no longer go back into your homes and close the door and pretend like what's happening outside isn't happening. So difficult as it is, I feel that we as America now are positioned in a way to make the kinds of changes that need to be made to make our cities better for everyone who lives in them.
That's awesome. Now, Madam Mayor, we had a conversation on this show last week. And one of the big things that we talked about was how Black people are moving out of the big cities and moving into like smaller cities, along the south of the country and the southern parts of the country. Just in general, we're seeing kind of like this new, some people say it's like a great migration of talent and skill. And it's really rooted in politics, it's rooted in diversity and racial makeup. Have you seen something like that happen to your city of Tacoma? Have you seen that there's been an influx of Black people who are saying, you know what? I'm tired of the big city life. I want to still be in an urban space, but at the same time, I want to have more of a hometown feel. I want to still feel like I can have like the social issues are more manageable versus, being uncontrolled. Have you seen that change in Tacoma?
I would say given the size of our city, so I don't know if I said we're about 220,000 people in our city. And one thing I love about Tacoma is that it's a big city, but it still has that small town feel.
Right.
But I will tell you one of the things that you didn't list there that is a big issue for us and others, and that is the reality that it's not just wanting to move to the suburbs. The affordability in some of our areas is out of control. People can't afford to live and work in the same city. And so I think that affordability plays even a bigger role in people moving, especially here. You can't be, unfortunately, at the way that the economy is going here, that the housing market is going, our teachers can't afford to live in the cities that they teach, let alone the people who are our servers, who are in the service industry, whether that's working in a restaurant or in a grocery store. Some of our essential workers, they can't even afford to live in cities. So I think that in cities across the country, I think another big part of that for us is the affordability of our cities. The increase in homelessness, right? Because people can't afford to live in these cities. So I think that's an issue that we're definitely facing.
So talk to us, and I'm glad that you made that point, Madam Mayor. So talk to us a little bit about the work of the National League of Cities. You guys had your convention last week. 1,300 attendees came out as part of that conversation. You talked about the American Rescue Plan and the infrastructure law. What was discussed in regards to those two pieces of legislation?
Let me first start by saying thank you to President Joe Biden and his entire administration, including both our leadership in the House and in the Senate. I'm so grateful to leaders like Nancy Pelosi, who got, to Speaker Pelosi, who got the America Rescue Plan passed. What I saw and heard last week from mayors and council members across the country is how helpful that money has been to communities. And I will say, we've gotten money from the federal government, but mostly through the state, and that takes a much longer time. But the ability to get money directly to cities know we are the ones who run into people in the grocery stores and at the gas station and at church, right? We're the ones who are talking to people and hearing their issues all the time, and the ability to have that funding come directly to us to be able to put exactly where we know it needs to be in rental housing assistance so that people aren't displaced, giving grants and funding to BIPOC-owned businesses, right, so that they can survive, helping with utility assistance, not just in people's homes, but also for businesses. Those kinds of supports that people need. We know immediately what the need is. So, one of the greatest things about ARPA was the ability to get the money directly to us so that we could get it quickly implemented, but also the idea that we have time to implement it so that we could work directly with our community to see what's needed. One of the highlights that I use a lot when I talk about the funding for us, as we came into COVID, we had a $59 million deficit we were looking at. That meant cutting jobs and services. But funding from ARPA allowed us not to have to make some of those really deep cuts. Now, we did at one point, we were cutting a fire engine. And because of ARPA dollars, we were able to use $8 million of our ARPA funding to save a fire engine. And while that, that in itself speaks to people, we also, in this past 6 to 8 months, had an uptick of 65.5% increase in arson. Can you imagine if we'd not had that engine? When we say ARPA saved lives, I mean ARPA literally saved lives for us. So, but what I heard is the story that I just shared with you about something in Tacoma is not unique to Tacoma. I mean, it resonates in cities throughout our country. And so being able to talk to other people, we had a whole session last week where everybody was in different rooms with cities about the same size and had table conversations so that we could learn from one another how they were implementing their ARPA dollars to see if there was something we could learn for our own city. So the stories were the same from cities across the country about how important the ARPA dollars were. And then as we get into talking about the infrastructure money, cities never have enough money for infrastructure, whether that be roads, bridges, light signals, crosswalks. meeting building standards, trying to be greener and to contribute, to be better stewards of the environment. Those, and then I should say, those are just the potential fixes that need to happen, but the jobs that come along with those fixes, being able to employ more people, those are the great things, I think, that are going to come out of this. We're going to put people back to work. We're going to fix some deeply needed infrastructure issues, but then we're also going to be able to meet the needs of our communities.
That is, and I'm so happy to hear, Madam Mayor, that those type of strides are being made. I want to bring back into the conversation culture crew member B. Fly, co-owner of and co-founder of Blackwater Production House. B, listening to Mayor Victoria talking a little bit about the things that are happening in Tacoma and then the challenges that are facing many cities. What goes through your mind?
I am wondering how this act can support the few Black municipalities that we have in the country, like known as the free towns, that are in Alabama and Florida, and one here in Maryland, Unionville, like real Black municipalities. Like how are these cities are able to access like these funds to really help revitalize like those particular areas, Hobson City, Unionville, areas in Florida, Deep South, that's what's going through my mind right now.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And the one thing about the ARPA dollars is those went directly to cities, and so there is a way for them to directly access those funds. And I'll also say through the National League of Cities, because a lot of smaller, National League of Cities represent cities, towns, and villages across America, and that means cities of less than 5,000 people, or villages less than 5,000 people. The great thing about the National League of Cities is not only do you have access to that money, but you have access to technical assistance, people who can walk you through how to make sure that your city, town, and village gets their funding. And then, in a lot of those places, they don't have the infrastructure to support all of the reporting requirements or understanding exactly what it can be spent on, what it can't be spent on. And so the National League of Cities, there's also an opportunity to engage with the National League of Cities to understand that, so that you can make the most out of the funding that can potentially be coming to your community. So as those enterprises are looking at this show and trying to figure out, well, wait a second, we didn't get our money. How do we get our money? Reaching out to the National League of Cities is a great way to understand and get that kind of support.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that website out there, Madam Mayor, nlc.org. NLC, just one L, folks, National League of Cities, but it's nlc.org. And I think that's a great point that you made, B, in terms of, the support, because what I'm finding here, Madam Mayor, is that, we often talking about getting more money for a lot of things in our cities. And I feel like, coming from Baltimore and having family in places all across this country, it just seems like the pockets, everybody is trying to figure out when the next dollar is going to come in. I'm saying in terms of cities, right?
Yeah.
There's always that ongoing issue that, you have the rainy day fund, and then next thing you know, that's going to be tapped into because cities have unexpected challenges. Something big comes up in those municipalities. Absolutely. So for us, especially for Black people in this country, how do we help, or how can we add to the progress, to the momentum of getting cities restored and rebuilt, and making sure that these cities are keeping us at the top of their priority list, especially when they're having those budgetary conversations?
So, there were a couple ways, and I'll start with this. Join NLC, become a part of the National League of Cities family. Just reach out. NLC is not this huge organization that is impossible to become a part of. So engage with NLC, because NLC they are advocates for cities, towns, and villages across the United States. They are an organization that looks out for the towns and villages, because a lot of our larger cities have opportunities. They have the staff they need. They have the infrastructure built. But a lot of our small towns and villages don't. And so, number one, be a part of NLC. The other thing that we talked about at the conference that NLC is also advocating for is that access to this funding, sometimes the application process can be so difficult. And in a direct conversation I'll always call him Mayor Pete, Secretary Pete, but Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and talking with him, even the federal government is looking at how do we make this application process easier so that people can access the money? Because if the money's there, but it's extremely hard to access, then that makes it even more difficult. And so it's the first time, I'll be honest with you, that I've heard an acknowledgement of the fact that the system doesn't well, it's great to get the money to us, but the system doesn't necessarily work for all cities, towns, and villages. So to have them talking about it on a national level, when you have the Secretary of Transportation talking about the fact that we know it's difficult and we're going to have to change some of our processes so that it's accessible to everybody, that's a huge change. Excuse me.
No problem, Madam Mayor. And so, if that's the case, I've heard it time and time again, and I'm sure B has heard it. People are just upset with government. People are upset with how government works or the lack of government work, right? And just as much, and I was always told this, and I was told this years ago as a community organizer, that if you get the constituent services taken care of, more likely people will be in support of any other policy. If you can get trash picked up, you can get the snow shoveled, you know what I'm saying? If you can fill in some holes in some roads, you got voters and you got supporters for life, right?
Yeah.
but people are upset with their government, in a lot of different ways. How does the National League of Cities and plan to address that sentiment that, government is no longer working? We've talked about the breakdown of democracy on a national level, but I think that trickles all the way down to the city level as well.
It does, but I will say we still got an opportunity, right? At least I believe cities still have an opportunity. Again, we're where the rubber meets the road. I love it. People say this all the time. I've never met a Republican or a Democrat pothole. Right? A pothole is a pothole. We don't have time to deal in some of that stuff. We have issues to solve. And I'll give you an example. Every city across America, for the most part, I shouldn't say every, but for the most part, most cities across America are dealing with this increased issue around violence and crime in communities.
Facts.
The National League of Cities on site at the meeting convened a group of mayors just to talk about this issue, because the true way to solve it, those are long-term, that's a long-term issue to solve. But in the immediate, we're having broken windows every single day. We're having gunshots in our communities. We've had an increase in homicides. So there is this difficulty, but being able for the National League of Cities to pull mayors together or council members together to have this conversation, to give us some tools, because the reality is, for our cities is that these problems won't be solved overnight. And one of the things I love about the National League of Cities, and this is the thing I harp about all the time, private companies get ideas and they hold them under a bush because their ideas, how quickly can they monetize them?
Right.
The greatest thing about local government is that when we get together, we immediately share and readily share any information that we have around issues that are working. The biggest compliment to a city is that you take my idea and make it better in your city. And so the ability to come together and learn from one another and share information with one another, that you have no idea the impact that has on other cities. And you don't have to always reinvent the wheel.
That makes
So
a
we
lot
were
of
there
sense.
last week advocating for funding, talking about how do we talk to the Department of Justice and to the administration about help in recruiting police officers? How do we talk about more incentives to get better officers in our community? How do we talk about more community policing programs so that we can get out of the idea that police have to patrol everything in a city, right? How do we have alternative responses? So those were some of the issues we were talking about last week and advocating for on behalf of cities.
Well, you know what, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to put it on you and ask you what was the end result of those conversations, because those are so big. I mean, the issues are so big that it would be unrealistic for me to expect that after this convention, y'all have all of the answers right now.
No, we don't. But the fact that we're working on them together is what makes the answer possible, right?
Right. And you know what? And I know it, and I'm not even an elected official. And I'm sure B knows it. I can't speak for her, but I'm sure she can kind of go along with this idea. None of this is easy. This is like uncharted territory that we're currently in right now. Whether you're talking about COVID, whether you're talking about the rise in the national homicide rate, whether you're talking about the shortage of workers and how that impacts city services. I mean, all of that stuff, right?
The unrest of our community, right? Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Of that stuff. Yeah.
None of that stuff. Nobody, there's no book. So I'm going to just say this, Madam Mayor. I'm going to just say this. I don't envy you, but I thank you.
Thank you. No, you look at this
I don't envy you, but no, I thank you for having the heart and the mind and the spirit to want to serve and to work on the behalf of people, or to be a public servant of the people in this time, because this is uncharted territory. And anytime I talk to an elected official, I know it's uncharted territory. There's no rule book. There's nothing other than your experience, a couple, maybe a precedent that may have been set a few years ago, but this is totally different.
You're right.
This is different. And especially as a Black woman in a mayoral seat in 2022, uncharted territory. Uncharted territory.
Well,
so we celebrate you. We admire you. We're going to support you, but we don't envy you.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all to have this discussion. I think these kind of discussions are so important for people to know and to understand that it is not easy. But I tell you what, I don't know a mayor, and I'm sure there's some, because nobody's perfect, that doesn't wake up every day thinking about how they can do the best for their city. And for you all to recognize that is absolutely amazing. And we appreciate you for getting the word out and trying to educate people, because that's what our communities need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mayor Victoria Woodards, who serves as the mayor of Tacoma, Washington, and also as the national vice president for the National League of Cities. Madam Mayor, again, thank you so much. You're always welcome to join us back here on the show when things happen, either within Tacoma or with NLC. We would love to have you back. Thank you.
I'd love to be back. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Folks, for more information about the National League of Cities, make sure you log into their website at nlc.org. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about the Crown Act. We talked about it just a tad bit on Friday, but when we get back, I'm going to get B Fly's view of the Crown Act, and we're going to be checking in with a young lady who wrote a book called My Beautiful Black Hair. St. Clair Dietrich Jules, the author, filmmaker, educator, is going to join us for the conversation about why Black hair expression is so important. So stay with us. That conversation is coming up. Also, we'll be checking in with Coach Butch McAdams later to talk about the whole issue around the signing and the record-setting deal of Deshaun Watson. Even in the midst of sexual misconduct lawsuits, he gets one of the biggest deals in NFL history. Wow. Let's have that discussion as well. Stay with us. A lot coming up in the next hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome to the second hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network. Thank you so much for tuning in. First hour had a fantastic conversation, talking a little bit about the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, and talked to the mayor of Tacoma, Washington, Madam Mayor Victoria Woodards, as we discussed what happened at the National League of Cities convention last weekend. So if you missed the first hour, make sure that you check it out. Great information, keep you up to date about all that is happening. All right, so we wanted to switch gears because last week we did have just a slight mention that the Crown Act had officially passed the House. Now it's up for the debate in the Senate. And even though a number of people are excited that we've gotten this far with having a bill that bans hair discrimination, the outlook of whether this bill is going to make it through the Senate doesn't seem good. So we did want to have a much more comprehensive conversation around the Crown Act and hair. I want to share this with you, and I certainly want to bring back my culture crew member, B Fly, as she serves as the co-founder of Blackwater Production House, and she is a hair enthusiast herself. Yes. All right, but check this out, folks. If you did not know, I want to post this, Keenan, if we could post this piece about the Crown Act, how it passed in the House. The Democratic-led House voted 235 to 189 to pass the Crown Act. If you did not know what Crown stands for, it actually stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. And this bill seeks to protect against bias based on hair texture and protective styles, including locks, cornrows, twists, braids, bantu knots, and afros. So that is the Crown Act. I think people thought the Crown Act was just simply because it was hair and it's just a part of the top of your head. Oh, that's the crown, not knowing that it actually is a set of initials around it. Oh, we got you on mute, B. You got you on mute. Hold on. There we go. All right, go ahead.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Ellen. I too thought the Crown Act was just the way we lean in to discussing our hair. It's natural for us to refer to our hair as our crown. And so it is also academically refreshing to know that language has been applied to it, and it's become this really great acronym that is paving the way, for us to be able to just show up. It's not a crime being having black hair. It's not a crime, to not be permed and to not have a Eurocentric standard of beauty. That is not a crime. And it's necessary, for this conversation to still be in our air. It is necessary because we're still experiencing discrimination in ways that just are immature, in very immature ways, and so and it's necessary, and this is a part of the R word, Farajii, representation.
Representation. That is absolutely right. And folks don't know the Crown Act. Now, here's the thing. First and foremost, the Crown Act actually is not just a national or federal legislation. It's also a statewide legislation. Here in the state of Maryland, for example, Delegate Stephanie Smith introduced the Crown Act piece of legislation. We tried to get Delegate Smith to come on to the show today, but she wasn't available. But she said, thank you so much for thinking about her. And how I could not think about her, because she got it started here in the state of Maryland for there to be, make sure that their hair discrimination was not happening. But to have it on the national level, I think speaks volumes. And that piece of legislation was introduced by Representative Bonnie Watson, who is a Democrat out of New Jersey. And she saw the importance of having something like this be on the books to make sure that our expression. Now I can even throw myself back in the day. I used to just have the regular clean cut type of situation. Now I switched over and say, all right, let me get some locks up in my hair right now at this point. But to have, just to make sure that we do have a safe space to express ourselves through our hair. And it still blows me away, B. I can't hold you on this one. It blows me away that what's on our head has to be a national conversation and has to be legislated. I just can't. It's like we still in 2022 don't have full agency of our own bodies.
And so this is the cross that we bear as Black people in the world. Not just in this country, not just in this state, not just in this city, and this is when more of us infect the mainframe of government, we're able to actually go into what it looks like to level the playing field, and what it looks like for us to be able to level the playing field literally sounds like not telling our children, don't lock your hair because you won't be able to get a job. How many times, do you remember that narrative being fed to you, Farajii? Don't wear natural hair, little girl. You have to get a perm. You have to sew in a weave in order to be perceived as professional, and it's these ideas of respectability politics that have been so embedded into the mainframe of this land, and we are still hiding. Black people are still in the closet in our lifestyle, and so it is necessary, while we're pushing all of these orientation boundaries legally, we have to still rally to show up without a perm. And that's real, you know? And so, and these are the fights that we still have to fight. So thank God it's still in the air. Thank God. You know, it's going to make it more difficult, you know, to be discriminated against. And let's just be clear, if we can make this law, then now, once we are discriminated against, we can arm ourselves with the law and sue our oppressors.
Absolutely.
And so, but without acts like this, we really don't have that legal standing. And so it is important. It's important. And I'm still confident that it's really gonna pass. You know, it's gotten this far, you know? And so I'm confident. Like I'm 51% confident. So we'll see.
Yeah. I want to bring in another voice into this conversation. She's a filmmaker, she's an educator, and she serves as the author of the new photojournalism project, My Beautiful Black Hair. We want to welcome now St. Clair Dietrich Jules as part of this conversation. And St. Clair, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. First and foremost, St. Clair, when you think about what has happened, first, let me just jump in there because I'm ready to have this conversation with you real bad. But let's first talk about your project, My Beautiful Black Hair. What is this all about?
So it all started with my little sister, Chloe, who was bullied by her majority white classmates when she was 4 years old. They told her that her afro, you know, because all of my siblings, we obviously have different hair textures. And one of my sisters has this huge, beautiful afro. And her white classmates told her that her hair was ugly, that it looked like little pieces of shrimp. They called it names. And so my sister was really embarrassed and she didn't want to go to school anymore because she was so ashamed of her natural hair. And so I said, okay, this ends here. And so that's why I created this book, My Beautiful Black Hair, 101 Natural Hair Stories from the Sisterhood. And I interviewed and photographed 101 Black women and girls, you know, and I asked them about their natural hair stories. I asked them about how they learned to love their hair, even when society tells them not to. I asked them what they would say to my little sister, Chloe, and by extension to all Black people who might not feel comfortable with their hair yet. And so that's really the catalyst for my project. It was all for my little sister, Chloe.
It was all started close to home, and then you started moving along and starting hearing other people's stories about their hair challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you heard that the Crown Act had passed the House and that, you know, there was this conversation happening in the United States Congress about the texture, the style, the way of Black hair, does it still seem like kind of Black Mirror, Twilight Zone-ish?
Yeah, it does sort of feel a little bit unbelievable. It's funny because, you know, everyone knows that I'm involved in natural hair activism now. And so many people were sending me these updates, you know, did you hear that the House passed, you know, the Crown Act and stuff like that. And so that was really cool just to see so many people excited about it and wanting to share in that joy with me. And I think that, you know, for so long I've been talking about, well, you know, for the past couple of years since it was first passed in California and New York, I have been talking about the Crown Act. And, you know, the goal is one day to make it national legislation. And so the fact that now we're already there, right? The Crown Act had only passed in maybe, you know, 15 states, I believe. And so now that it's becoming national legislation, I mean, that's incredible. It does feel surreal, but I'm also trying to remain really optimistic and hope that it passes in the Senate as well, because it's so important. As you said, it's so important for us to have that legal protection too.
Yeah, and you know what? One of our watchers, Zoe, made this point, which is something I think needs to be really, you know, examined. Zoe said, the conundrum to me is how our people are able to change their gender and have rights to protect their choices, but Black people still fighting for rights over hair.
I mean, because Farajii, let's just be clear. You know what I'm saying? Like the fight over gender and orientation rights and legislation, that's not a Black issue. We have Black people who are a part of the movement, but that is not a Black-led movement. We are still literally fighting for our rights to exist in society.
Right.
Like as ourselves. And so
Right.
and that literally means going down to the fabric of like itemizing our Black bodies in order to deem each itemized part legitimate and allowable within the main framework of society. That's what we're dealing with. And because of the fact we have embedded and we've been able to infect the justice system the way we have, this is why these itemized lines are necessary at this point, because we see in society, in the reality, we are still getting hit on basic HR levels, basic jobs, you know? And so we're still fighting for the fundamental rights of Black people, you know? And so and so this is important, and Zoe is totally correct in the irony, but we also know that it is not ironic because we are still in a hostage situation. And I have to keep on going back to that because these crumbs are still needed. And that's the unfortunate
I hear you.
part.
I hear your pain. I hear your pain.
That's the humbling part of our Black reality, that we are still grappling and praying for crumbs.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's exactly what it is. And the other part of Zoe's message was, somebody please make it make sense, St. Clair, that we're still in this position. And to B's point, you know, we're getting like crumbs, like, you know, even though the Constitution say Black people, and has never changed, that we're a 3/5 human being, we have to fight for every fraction of our humanity at this point, so that way we can be seen as a whole person. And in that process, we got to become healed people as well, St. Clair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much healing to do from within. And even when B was talking about, you know, we almost have to itemize these different parts of ourselves to be accepted. I think about how the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was supposed to protect us on the basis of race and national origin. And yet our hair, you know, natural Black hair, hasn't been included in that, right? So technically, you know, we're supposed to be protected because of our skin color, but our hair, which is clearly associated with Blackness, is still not protected, right? We're still fighting for, you know, we had to come up with the Crown Act. And so I think that really does show, again, that we are just fighting for crumbs. But this idea of healing ourselves from within is really important, because I think that sometimes, you know, we have these internalized white supremacist beauty standards within us. And so even if all the laws change and, you know, yes, okay, we're allowed to wear our natural hair now, you know, my little sister can wear her afro without being discriminated against, all of that, we still have to understand for ourselves as Black people that our hair is beautiful and that it ties us to our ancestors, that it ties us to a past that's, yes, full of struggle, but also our people have been around long before slavery and colonization. We have such a long, powerful history, and our hair is a connection to all of that. And I think when we tap into all of that, that will really help us in our healing process as a people.
St. Clair, what do you say to people who say, okay, well, if hair is so important, why do Black people dye it blonde or green or these other colors? If hair is so important, why do y'all wear wigs? Why do Black women wear wigs and extensions? If their natural hair is so important, why don't you seem to value it to the point where you are proud of it? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's a personal choice. And I know every Black person has a different relationship with their hair. I think that, you know, how I heard one Black woman explain it, which I really liked, was basically, you know, she said, yeah, you can experiment with your hair. You can do different things to your hair. You know, maybe you can dye it. Maybe you can change the texture. But as, you know, as long as it's never sort of in retaliation to or against your natural hair texture, right? So whatever we do, we always have to have this reverence for how our hair grows out of our head naturally, right? And I know that it's a tricky subject, right? And so I wear my hair natural. I haven't dyed my hair in maybe like 7 or 8 years. But again, it's a personal decision. And I think that the more we honor our hair, you know, the way it grows naturally, again, the more we heal. And I know that also there are a lot of Black women in particular who do love their natural hair, but feel like they have to continue straightening it, or, you know, putting chemicals in it or doing, you know, certain styles in order to be accepted in school or in the workplace. And so sometimes it's not even a question of, oh, I don't love myself. I hate my hair. I'm just going to change it. Sometimes
Right.
it really is, oh, I love my curls, or I love my afro, but I'm worried that I'm not going to get this promotion if I go natural, right? That kind of thing.
Right. B, what's your take on that point?
You know, I've been all around the world, and I'm still every day like reckoning with my response. It can, at any time, my response to my own crown can go from a traumatic response to a healing response, you know? And it's really just a part of the complexity of my Blackness, you know? And as opposed to, you know, the opposite of whiteness, you know, the variations to our hair are so unique to our experience. The fact that we've been forced into a Jim Crow hopscotch way of business has totally affected the way we've been able to grow our own hair industries in order to care for ourselves. You understand? So it's like the self-care that we require. We're still chasing commercials of Eurocentric standards that do not care for our hair on a main level, you know? So it's like, Farajii, you know, I had locks for 20 years. And so now understanding my 4C hair as opposed to 3B and 2C and the entire chemical foundation that goes to understanding Black hair, like, it is that real. But that lets you know how electromagnetic we all are in all of our shades and all of our glory and all of our hair textures, you know? And so we're not a monolith. At any point we can, as people, shapeshift into unrecognizable Black selves.
Right.
All three of us in this conversation, you know? And that lets you know like how powerful we are, which is probably why we've been forced to hopscotch our entire life in this country, you know? But we are getting stronger, and thank you to your work, you know? My beautiful hair, like in Blackness, it takes women, you know, like us, to be able to move this conversation forward, to put our work and our productions like really in the world and in mainstream commercial society, so our daughters and our sisters are able to fight these battles easier. You know, it's not going to stop in the schools. It's not going to stop the little white children who are repeating what their parents are saying. But what it will do is empower our daughters and our sons to have to be able to fight these battles on the playground for themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so it's important. Like, and this is why we do the work that we do. Women in film, women producers, like, we are necessary in the world. You know?
Absolutely. St. Clair, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people how they can find your work, My Beautiful Black Hair. Where can they find these natural hair stories?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my book, My Beautiful Black Hair, it's available wherever books are sold. So you can go to your local bookstore. It's available at Target. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. And you can also go to my website, which is just www.mybeautifulblackhair.com. So again, mybeautifulblackhair.com.
There it is. There it is. And you know what? Say it again.
Farajii, can you get us some signed copies? Can we get some
signed
copies?
If St. Clair wants to do it, if she wants to send me a couple of copies, we can arrange that to happen. That way we can have some stuff set up behind us and stuff. But we can do it. We can make it happen. That's up to her.
That would be great. I would love to share it with you both.
Okay. I would love.
That's great.
That's
great. I can't wait.
A lot to me. I appreciate it. And thank you both for all of your work with this too. And B, I feel like all of your comments have made me think more deeply about all of this as well. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That's what's up. I can't wait to link with you online, girl. We about to be besties.
Yes.
Just follow her on Twitter. Just follow her on Twitter. St. Clair, I truly appreciate your time. Again, folks, her book is My Beautiful Black Hair, 101 Natural Hair Stories from the Sisterhood. Man, oh man, such a powerful, inspiring work here. And St. Clair, we are just so thankful that you're putting this out. You're just adding to the conversation. And, you know, once this bill, my fingers are crossed just like this, St. Clair. Once this bill passes the Senate, I got to bring you back on because we got to do like a victory conversation, a celebratory conversation. Something has to happen.
I would love that.
With this bill, as crazy as it is, and I know people are saying like, why are our bodies still being legislated? Why is all this? At the end of the day, this is where we find ourselves. And unless we're willing to go and change up the system and do some very revolutionary things, I mean, we're going to have to get our humanity back piece by piece. And if it's through voting, if that's through the Crown Act, if that's through any type of legislation, we're just going to have to move forward until an alternative solution makes itself present. But this is certainly something that I hope and that we can really make happen. So, St. Clair, I appreciate your time with us, dear sister, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Okay, me too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to check in with Coach Butch McAdams. Let's talk about the situation around Deshaun Watson. This is disturbing to me, and I'm sure once we break down the details, it will be disturbing to you. Or you might just say, that's just the way things are. But I just simply can't allow us to have things like this happen without having a full conversation. So we're going to be checking in with Coach Butch McAdams. We'll continue to have our conversation with B Fly and, of course, with you. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. Let's talk a little bit about sports. Now, this weekend, there have been talks of a lot of trade and, some high-profile players going to this team, another team. But there's no trade that got me wondering, that got me thinking, like this one we're going to talk about today with Coach Butch McAdams in a moment. That's the trade of Deshaun Watson, the quarterback that played with the Houston Texans and now has been officially traded to the Cleveland Browns for first-round draft picks in 2022, 2023, and 2024, as well as a 2023 third-round pick and a 2024 fourth-round pick. Wow. I mean, if you look at the fact that that trade is happening for all of that. This is one man, folks. This is just for one man. Let me just share with you a little bit more. So the Browns are set to give Mr. Watson. Oh, they already gave it, actually. The Browns have signed Deshaun Watson for a new 5-year, $230 million contract. He would receive $184 million over the first 4 years of his new contract. And then he would receive a $48 million raise over what he was scheduled to make under his current contract. Here's the whopper. Y'all ready for this, folks? Here is the big part of this conversation. And I'm blown away by this. The $230 million is all guaranteed. That means regardless of what happens, he's getting this money. That's what that means, folks. He's getting this money regardless of all that is happening right now. And I'm pulling up and I'm looking at the details of this situation. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world? Now, why am I upset about this? Why am I disturbed about this? No, not because he's not my favorite player. I mean, I think he's a talented player. I'm disturbed about this because Deshaun Watson is a man who is in deep legal trouble. Because why? he has nearly 24 lawsuits from women who said that he has been sexually nearly 24 lawsuits for sexual misconduct against women. Over nearly 24, like 21, 22 lawsuits currently, actively, while he's getting signed a mega deal like this. The Cleveland Browns. Keenan, let's show up. Let's show that what the Cleveland Browns had to say about signing Deshaun Watson. This is from D and Jimmy Haslam of the Cleveland Browns when they signed him. They said, "We are acutely aware and empathetic to the highly personal sentiments expressed about this decision. Our team's comprehensive evaluation process was of the utmost importance due to the sensitive nature of his situation and the complex factors involved." This is from the Cleveland Brown owners, D and Jimmy Haslam. Let me share something else with you. We're going to bring Coach in on this and B Fly. Check this out. This is what they also said. The Texans general manager, Nick Caserio, he said, "Believe trading Watson was the right move for his organization as the team rebuilds." He said, "Our priority right now is adding talented player to the foundation we have already put in place over the last 15 months, and this trade supports this plan." I got to bring in Coach Butch McAdams. Coach, I thank you so much, sir, for being part of this conversation. $230 million guaranteed, and he's in the middle of about 21, 22 different lawsuits for sexual misconduct against women. What am I missing here, Coach?
Well, what you're missing is several things. This isn't high school. This isn't even college, where you're teaching morals and responsibilities and life lessons. This is a business. This is the NFL. And I knew that when Deshaun Watson, when he was cleared of any convictions, then he would be on the open market. Deshaun Watson is in his 20s, I believe. He is a 3-time Pro Bowler. And we've talked about this before. The one thing we learned this year is that you don't go deep in the playoffs unless you have an all-star caliber quarterback. And there are a number of teams that were a quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl. This time last year, we could say the same thing about the Rams. And the Rams got their quarterback, and they went to the Super Bowl, and they won it. Okay, and so, hey, I think it was a good deal for Cleveland, and we know it was a good deal for Deshaun Watson. But keep in mind, Farajii, and viewers, that the NFL is a business. And if you anything short of, being convicted and facing criminal charges, and you have talent, they're going to find you, they're going to sign you, and they're going to play you.
But you know what, though, Coach? And I want to bring B Fly into this as well, our culture crew member. But here's the thing about this. The thing about this is that the hypocrisy, some players get a treatment like this. Other players, they don't get the treatment like this.
Well,
and we can go down the number of cases where some players like a Ray Rice, you got a situation, boom, you knocked out. You're not coming back to play football. He wound up marrying the woman that he
Well,
violated. They resolved. I'm
but
assuming they resolved that situation, right?
let me just jump in real quick. And
Right.
this is, look, that's life, unfortunately. As someone once said, there's the World's Fair, there's the county fair, but life isn't fair. And what I mean by that, and where it's applicable in this story, is that people in life are treated based on how much you can bring to the table for their business. And Ray Rice didn't play again because a lot of people looked at the tape and thought he had lost a step. Okay? But if you can play, and Deshaun Watson can certainly play, you could put him in the top 6 quarterbacks in the league, possibly. And he's young.
Yeah, 26.
He's 26 years old, which is, I mean, he's just reaching his prime at the quarterback. So, hey, he gets the special treatment, and others, not based on color, but based on talent. If you can play, that's it.
Hey, B-Fly, I got to ask you, 22 civil lawsuits against this man.
Hey, yo, I'm reading the tea. I'm reading the tea.
22. And then look, I'm a football fan, so, y'all can. I've been watching Kaepernick. Kaepernick been actually back on the field. Like he's like IGN, he going IG live every time he's on the field now because he's trying to get this job. He's trying to get back in. But when you look at this situation, though, B-Fly, like 22, like it's not just one. You mean to tell me like 22 is acceptable to give him? I mean, $230 million. One of our watchers, Janelle, said he may not even get to play, but it's like they're paying him just to take care of his legal woes. No justice for his alleged crimes, just payment because patriarchy, misogyny, and capitalism.
Yeah, this is, in Bill Cosby's America, this is how you're rewarded, and so it's a
that's how your talent is rewarded.
And that, but like Coach said, we're not in the morality wars. This isn't a morality sport, and clearly these ain't moral men. So, and we have a lot of money, riding on the backs of immoral men.
That's right.
But this is akin to the culture of the NFL. This is akin. This is bestiality in its finest, and it's okay. And I feel sorry for, the droves of women. And these allegations are very explicit. He is a clear predator, and he is being rewarded because a jury did not find him guilty. And so because the jury has not found him guilty, there is no reason for the patriarchal sport to not finance his next 5 years in the game. And how does it feel, men, to be a part of Bill Cosby's America?
Wow.
This is for y'all.
Wow.
This is, how do y'all feel? This is the culture that has been created, and these are the Black men that we praise. So how y'all feel?
Yeah, and that's the other
I'm
part about this,
disgusted.
Coach. And I'm not expecting the NFL to be the moral beacon of the country. I'm not expecting that. I'm just simply, even for us as Black people, as Black men and Black women who, my son is a part of a sports league, and for the thousands of parents whose children are part of the sports league, do we praise Deshaun? Do we put him up there as hey, this is what your talent can do for you?
Well, no. Well, see, look, I never looked at athletes as role models.
Hold on. Say it again now, Coach, because you know that goes against everything that we have been taught about role models and athletes.
Well,
again.
Well, the people who taught that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, they were wrong. And when Charles Barkley said it years ago, he was correct. I'm not saying that athletes should not conduct themselves as models, but what I am saying is that we as parents and guardians and godfathers and uncles and aunts, we should not use athletes as role models. We should use them as goal models. GOAL, goal models. For example, I don't want my son or daughter to look up to a Deshaun Watson because we don't know Deshaun Watson. Okay, but if my son aspires to be a quarterback, then I want him to look at Deshaun Watson's tapes, study his workout routine, and that's where I say goal models, but not role models.
But can you differentiate between the two?
Absolutely.
Can we look at him as a goal model and say, yeah, I can look at him, but then as a man outside of the field, as a human being, you be like, damn, though, he a predator. And I'm saying for young people, they may not be able to differentiate between the two elements of a person.
Well, but that's when the adult figure comes in. That's when the parent comes in. That's where when the coach, etc., comes in. Okay. And the role models, for example, my nephews, I've got 3 nephews. I've got one adult who I reared since he was an infant, and I have 2 12-year-olds. And I'm their role model because they see me. They see my work ethic. They see me and how I conduct myself. All right. So I should be the role model. But if one wants to, let's say, play the piano, then he can pick a musician out to be a goal model. So we make the mistake. We can't let people who we don't know influence our children that much. And once again, he went through the process, whether it was right or wrong, whether we agree with it or not. He went through the legal process. He was found not guilty or not enough to bring charges.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's not going to jail. He's not being convicted of anything. And now he's going to probably have to pay some money for some civil suits.
Right.
Right. But
that's
he did, that's it. But as the youngsters say, for real, look at some of the owners. Look at some of the owners. Some of them have issues with women, or at least reportedly. Correct.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
So
Coach.
look, I don't know what kind of person Morgan Freeman is. I don't know what kind of person Samuel L. Jackson is. I don't know. But as long as they're not convicted of murder or mayhem, if they produce a film, I'm going to go and support it because they're good actors. That's it.
Gotcha. Hey, B, what's your final take on this? As listening to Coach, that's a very, very tight rope for us to walk as a people, as a community, and certainly for our culture.
Then apply that same premise to Kanye.
To who?
All right, to Kanye.
In terms of what now?
What, that you can appreciate his artistry. You can separate the artist from the man.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
gonna be honest with both of y'all. I can't.
Well,
I just can't. I'm gonna be honest with you. Y'all might be like, man, I can do it. We had the same conversation about R. Kelly.
And I respect that. No, I respect that. I can.
I can't.
You know what? I can, and I think you can say that about a whole bunch of people. Okay,
Right.
we can say that about most of your presidents.
Right.
Okay, to me have not been someone that I would want to invite to dinner. Maybe Jimmy Carter,
Right.
you know, and I don't know him.
Or President Obama.
Maybe, yeah. All right, but other than that, but most people would say, in terms of an administration and the budget and everything, that Bill Clinton was a good president. Okay, from an administrative perspective, but from a moral perspective, to me, in my opinion, he was one of the worst.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Okay,
Coach,
but
I
there.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I can separate the two. I can certainly separate the two. I don't know what kind of time you got, but it's one or two more quick issues I like to put on the table if possible.
If I'm gonna bring you back, how about that?
I'm always at your beck and call. Yep.
I appreciate it. I definitely want to bring you back and let's talk about those two issues. But I appreciate you as always, Coach Butch McAdams, host of In and Out of Sports, folks, that you can hear him and hear more of his insight and certainly his perspective. Coach, thank you so much, dear brother. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure.
All right, look, we're gonna take a quick pause. I'm gonna just let you know, B, I can't separate it. Like after a while, it gets too hard to separate the two. But we're gonna take a quick pause. When we come back, trends, posts, and doing the most. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network. All right, folks. We want to just share with you some of the trending topics, but I have to we got to bring B back into this because I know B, and we just gonna have to agree to disagree on this one. B, that's all it is. I know it. But look, Donita said something. Donita checked in on your YouTube chat, and she said something that I thought was absolutely important for us to bring up. She was like, "Yes, it doesn't have anything to do with morals. It's all about the money, but they trying to stand on a moral ground when it came to the flag." That's what I'm talking about. You see how hypocritical and confusing and backwards the stand is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, when the flag come up, we are moral. But when it comes to this money or to these players, morality go right out the door. And let me just say, you can't, and this is a long conversation, but it's hard to separate the person from whatever their talent is, right? Because, I mean, we know in America, talent is well rewarded. If you are in arts, entertainment, sports, you're going to get gobs of money. Is it fair? Now, is it fair? No. Hell no, it ain't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair at all.
But it is quite capitalistic.
Oh, no, please. That's all it is. It's money. It's money. But, and I think to Coach's point and to your point, there has to be different conversations that we have to have within our community to our young people, to our babies, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, whoever, but to the next generation coming up behind us to teach them the value of having moral character as a human being, so that way you can prosper within any endeavor in life. That's all I'm gonna say. We got to teach our children to have moral character, man. Yes, you could be famous, you can be heard all over the place, seen around the world, and all of those things, but none of that matters if you don't have no moral character. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. You spoke about Kanye. Let me tell you why he's trending right now. The Grammys. He was removed from the Grammys, B, because of his online antics. They banned him from the Grammys because of his online, his concerning as they say, concerning online behavior. He was dropped in the wake of his IG suspension for directing racial slurs toward Trevor Noah, host of the upcoming music awards. Some people say that Kanye is going through another manic breakdown, bipolar breakdown. I don't know. But the dude can't just keep going off at the mouth and then not suffer some consequences. The same thing, they're trying to create a petition against him from performing at Coachella. What's your take, B?
Well, listen, if I know Kanye the way I think I know Kanye, Kanye is setting us up for a next level platform, a next level experience. I am ready for a pay-per-view Kanye experience. This is what I'm voting for. I don't need to see Kanye in reference to the Grammys. I don't need to experience Kanye in reference to Coachella. I need to experience Kanye in Kanye world, period. Because clearly this is where we're all fascinated. This is where he puts us, whether we want to be in his world or not. And the only difference between Kanye and his ex-wife, Kim, let's just be clear. Kim is involved in the production of reality TV. So we're going to see her in seasons and in series, all right? But Kanye is his own individual, his own rapper, his own Gemini. So as a result, he's going to say what he wants to say, and he's going to generate his popularity. He's going to generate his buzz and his conversation on his own. So I'm hoping this is only setting us up for Kanye pay-per-view, the same way we can watch the patriarchy duke it out in the rain. I'm ready for Kanye on my screen. That's what I want.
That's what you want.
So that's what I want. That's what I want. And I'm saying it out loud because, at the end of the day, he don't need Coachella. At the end of the day, he don't need the Grammys. The Grammys need him. Coachella need him. So if they want to be on this, if they want to take this stand, then I would love for Kanye and his economic power, his creative genius, to literally show up in an autonomous way, so where we can all pay $19.99, $99.99, $999,
if you want to pay for it, B,
whatever. That's what it is. I'm just saying, like that's what I'm ready for. Let's separate Kanye from these institutions, and give me the Kanye show.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Again, I recognize that Kanye has great talent in music. We know that doesn't need to be said. But I think his online activities, everything, whether it's from Trevor Noah, D.L. Hughley, Pete Davidson, his ex-wife, anybody, it's like, bro, you need to just slow it down. You need to get some help.
No, but let's just be clear. He's not a Deshaun Watson, no.
No, he's not a Deshaun Watson. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about. I'm talking about. But see, here's the thing, though. Kanye's influence is much more. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think he's much stronger in his influence, where Kanye could say something online, and then his followers, his supporters, his fans will do what he say. Deshaun Watson don't have that level of influence among sports fans.
Yeah,
you got diehard Kanye fans.
This is true, but Kanye is not leading the people over some sort of cliff. What cliff is Kanye leading the people over? Nothing.
I don't know. You know what?
I'm saying?
We ain't got
no cliff. That's what I'm saying.
We ain't got enough time in the show to answer that question right now. We could go back and forth, but we're gonna have to wait until another time.
Bring me Kanye on cable. Bring me HBO Kanye.
What cliff?
Bring me Netflix. Listen,
his whole Republican campaign was a cliff.
Listen, and I voted for it. Okay, I'm just saying, I buy in. I openly buy in.
His whole campaign was a cliff.
And I checked the box.
I get you. And you know what? I don't mind. I actually admire the fact that you supported him in his presidential campaign. And more importantly, I'm glad that you are a Kanye fan, because again, my whole thing is this platform is for everybody. So we can disagree, but it doesn't mean that I don't allow you the space to say what you need to say. So that's not a problem. But I'm just saying that was a cliff for me. That was a cliff for me. I could be wrong with it. I mean, for everybody else, something else. I damn sure am not with the fact of any type of cyberbullying. Definitely not for that. Definitely not for that. And look, I watch Kanye, and I think that I have a view of him that's like, okay, that's sort of balanced as much as it can be balanced, and considering, okay, he lost his mom, he went through some things, boom, 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 all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, bro, you know the difference between right and wrong. You know what you're doing. You know, I mean, these things we can't just slide. And I'm not talking about he should be the victim of cancel culture either, B. I'm just simply saying at the end of the day, he knows exactly what he's doing. And if he doesn't, he needs to get some help to realize he does.
I think when it comes to the Grammy little snafu,
yeah,
alrighty, it was, this is simple, this little glitch of the first law of 48 powers, the 48 laws of power. He literally, he inadvertently stepped on the master. He inadvertently dissed the host of said Grammy. And so to my knowledge, this was before it even released, before it was even announced that Trevor Noah was going to be the host. All right. And so it's like, but do not come for Kanye. Kanye did not just randomly and arbitrarily say something about Trevor. Trevor started it. So it's like, let's be clear. Trevor threw the stone, Kanye hit the bat, and now Kanye has to get benched. Even Trevor himself.
Was that the case with DL?
Listen, DL is just appreciative that his name is in the same air. Let's just
I don't know why Kanye would start something with DL. Have you ever if you've gone to a DL Hughley show, he loves those things. I mean, he's a comedian.
Kanye
he loves that. He loves the off the cuff clapbacks. He loves that.
It's the greatest.
That's what he does.
It's the greatest. He's best friends with Dave Chappelle. You mean to tell me that I personally believe that he, DL, Trevor, and Pete are right now drinking Naughty Bows over in the Sunday school installation tent. You're drinking smoking ayahuasca, the whole nine. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This might be all a host for Kanye's next pay-per-view on demand presentation. That's all I say. This might be all of that. B, I gotta let you go. We are way over. Always appreciate and love you, sis. I appreciate you. How can people follow you and the work that you're doing?
That's what's up. Well, feel free to find me on blackwatermusic.com, Black Sheezes on my Instagram, and stay tuned to the Maryland Film Fest. Your girls' film, Amethyst Loves God's Wedding of the Afrofuture, has been selected as one of the official short films. So this is going to be great. Just stay tuned. BlackSheezes.com, ALGmovie.com, all of the Facebooks, all of the Instagrams. We're in it. Shout out. Blackwater, Chariz Marcel.
There we go. There we go. B Fly, thank you so much for being so good for the culture and being a part of our conversations today. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Farajii.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the fantastic comments and all of the conversation around our discussions. I want to thank all of our wonderful guests. We had Mayor Victoria Wooders. I want to thank her. I want to thank St. Clair Dietrich Jules. I want to thank her. And Coach Butch McAdams. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure you continue to show your support for us at blackstarnetwork.com, where you can give and continue to let people know that this network runs off of the power and the love of the people. And so we want you to support the Black Star Network through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle, and do all that you can. Even if you can't give, make sure that you tune in. Tell your family and friends to download the app for free. Tell them that they can tune in to every one of our shows. They can tune into the shows from Get Wealthy to A Balanced Life to The Black Table and to yours truly. All of that and more. So make sure you continue to support Black-owned media in blackstarnetwork.com. That's going to do it for me. I thank you for spending a little extra time with us. And stay tuned. Up next at the 6 o'clock hour is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.